Here we are, guys, in part 29 of this story. In the land of waves, our favorite blonde encounters the Kyuubi. Watch the subsequent events unfold as Naruto uses the power that was sealed inside of him on the day of his birth. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Now, let's begin. The day had come where Naruto and Jiraiya departed their coastal paradise. While Jiraiya would admit he's miss all those busty beach babes in itty-bitty bikinis, they had been in this location for just over 2 months now, and even Jiraiya was ready to move on to the next potential peeping paradise. Sadly for him, he'd have to wait some time as the two of them were set out into the wilderness, heading north to some place in the middle of nowhere where Naruto would be trained by Kurama in utilizing the full potential of the full Kyuubi mode. Jiraiya knew this was important, especially if he had any hopes of not being accidentally flattened by a wayward foxtail that Naruto had no idea how to control. Besides, he was a happy author, a happy, pervy author now that his best volume of the Icha Icha series was now in the hands of the publisher, and it would only take a few months before that book hit shelves. So where are we going? Asked Jiraiya to a red-eyed Naruto, or blind Kurama. Just be patient, Jiraiya. We'll be there the day after tomorrow, commented Kurama. Seeing as Kurama was the one who knew where they were going, Naruto had temporarily relinquished control to his furry tenant. There's a village about an hour away where we can stop for the night. After that, we'll be in the wild until the toads are ready for us. Jiraiya nodded, but for some reason he didn't feel comfortable about following the Kyuubi into the wilderness. A few hours passed and the duo trio reached what appeared to be more of an outpost than a village. Kish 2, we're in the land of foxes, aren't we? Asked Jiraiya, giving Kurama a questioning glare. Despite the initial appearance of the village actually was rather large, being covered mainly by forests. However, the primary aspect to this village was an extravagant shrine situated at the middle of the village, leading up a large hill. One of the most noticeable features about said shrine was the fox statues and torii lining the pathway to the shrine. That's the temple of Inari, the ancient kami of these lands and its inhabitants, replied Kurama. So this is where we're staying? Asked Jiraiya. Not in this village or temple. As I said, our destination is over a day away, but this land is still wild. This is the last piece of civilization until we reach our destination, answered Kurama. So where exactly are we going? Asked Jiraiya. Home, was all Kurama said before giving control back to Naruto. You know, if I'm correct, there's a ramen stand in this village, exclaimed Naruto, completely off topic and retaking control of his body as he went for his ramen passport. There was in fact a ramen stand in his passport, in this book. Kish 2 was the home to the Inari ramen. This would make ramen number 28. He was getting closer. He had never expected to fill his book during this trip, but 24 different entries were more than he had hoped. Now Naruto was certain it wouldn't be too much longer before he and Iruka-sensei were enjoying the Ichiraku special. After racing their way through the wilderness, the pair of Konoha ninja now found themselves overlooking their destination. A large, beautiful forested valley surrounded by a total of 9 mountains. There was a large river flowing through the center of the valley with a waterfall pouring from the cliff they were standing on. The place was wild and pure. It hadn't been touched in. It's been over 100 years since I've set foot in this place, commented Kurama. So where exactly are we? Asked Jiraiya. My home, replied Kurama. This left Jiraiya speechless for a bit. Your home? Or at least it was my home until I decided to leave, replied Kurama. I lived here with my mate in this valley until she was taken from me. Afterwards, I found I couldn't stay here and so I decided to move on. So why come back now? Because I just felt like coming back here. It just felt right. I figured it was time, and this place has always been good to me. Besides, it'll give us some privacy while I train the kid to use my powers to their fullest, replied Kurama. Sadly, my actual home has succumbed to time, but seeing as we've got plenty of camping supplies sealed away, there shouldn't be any problems. Within a few hours, Naruto, Jiraiya, and Kurama had scouted out an ideal location to set up his camp near the river and set up the camp where they would be spending the next few weeks. As it grew dark, Naruto found himself up in a tall tree, gazing at the bright starry sky. Wow, it's actually quite nice here. The stars are brighter than any I've ever seen back home, commented Naruto. You actually called this place home? A long time ago, replied Kurama. The real reason I came here was because I felt like this was the best place to tell you. Tell me about what? You asked to know more about me. You were right back there. You're the first human I've met in centuries I can actually say I trust, and as such I feel you should know more about me. Especially seeing as we're going to take our bond one step further while out here, answered Kurama. Now, just don't interrupt me until I'm done. Kurama's tale. Over 1,000 years ago, these very lands were cast into a bottomless pit of hatred and a never-ending war ensued. To those who wished for the wars to stop, hope seemed to fade with every passing moment as those who possessed divine and mystical powers used them to fan the flames of conflict. These warmongers were seen as tyrants and gods to the common folk. They kept mainly to themselves as they knew if the secrets behind their powers were divulged, then their grip on the world would slowly slip. They were successful in their endeavors to control the world through destruction and greed, threatening more war to those who opposed their will. However, there was one man who wished for the wars to stop. He realized that the powers that only these select few warlords possess lay dormant within each and every being on this planet, and that if used correctly, those powers could be used to usher civilization into an era of peace. And so this man, a simple monk, set out to divulge and explain the secrets behind this mysterious power, which was later given the name chakra. Upon learning the secrets of chakra, this man set out on a journey to spread his wisdom to the four corners of the world with only one goal in on his mind: peace. As he began to spread his knowledge and free the peoples from their oppression, a title was granted to him. You know him throughout your legends as the Rikudo Sennin. I am going to tell you that those aren't mere legends, they are truths. Throughout his life, the Rikudo Sennin divulged into the very secrets behind the forces that governed our universe, blessed with these powers himself. However, the warmongering fools who tried greedily to maintain their grasp to power were not happy with the sage's exploits. One by one, they tried to silence the sage, but it proved fruitless. Armed with the eyes of Kami, the Rinnegan, the sage wasn't going to let this world dissolve back into the endless wars that once spread like wildfire. In the end, the warlords found themselves with one last resort to end the sage's quest for peace. Sacrificing their own powers, they called upon the very depths of the universe itself to summon forth a primordial entity from the beginning of times to strike down the sage once and for all. This entity was the greatest of all Bijou and the very source that our life force originates from, the Jubi. This being possessed a chakra, both potent and overwhelming enough that the complete destruction of our world looked imminent. In all senses, the Jubi was effectively a god of ancient times. Many stood together to face this foe and preserve the peace they had worked so hard for and come to embrace, but all failed. All but one. When all hope seemed lost, the Rikudo Sennin himself stood up to the Jubi. Using its immense powers, the Jubi bombarded the sage with multiple cataclysmic attacks. However, in the end the sage remained standing and unwavering. The sage then unleashed his own powers onto the Titan and the battle between gods ensued. As their powers continued to clash, it became evident to the sage that there was only one way in which he would be able to defeat this Titan, and that was to seal it within himself, effectively making him the first Jinchuriki. The world had been saved and the sage was hailed as a god by the people of the land for saving them from the Jubi's wrath. However, his victory over the menace was only temporary. You see, even though he was hailed as a god, the sage was in fact still human, meaning that even his own life would come to an end. And when that day came, the Jubi would be released from the seal to wreak havoc upon the world once again. As such, the sage came up with a more permanent solution. Using his own powers, the sage divided up the Jubi's chakra into 9 separate entities, creating the 9 Bijou that are known throughout the world today. Yes, to me, the Rikudo Sennin was my father, and he is the one person I respect above all others. I have already told you a bit about my brothers and sisters, the 8 other Bijou. You know them as Shukaku, Mutatabi, Isabu, Son Goku, Kokuo, Seiken, Chomei, Gyuki, and then there is myself. To me, even though some of us don't necessarily see tail to tail, they are my brothers and sisters, derived from the same chakra and created by the same man. Before we were scattered around the world, our father left us with a few final words: follow a rightful path and search for what real strength is. For the first few centuries of my life, I wandered the world, trying to continue what my father had started, aiding the humans and trying to guide them down the proper path, thinking I was following what the old man had considered a rightful path. However, I was not my father and I was unable to get through to the people as he would. Slightly frustrated, I decided to venture to the land we are now, hoping to find some respite against my own kind. I had learned that this land was home to many wise kitsunes and perhaps I could find my own path from them. Still, it wasn't as easy as I had thought. Many of the kitsunes had the idea of keeping to themselves and letting the world play out for itself, despite many of them periodically leaving the land to interact with the humans. I wanted to follow in my father's footsteps, not sit around devising new ways to trick humans and contemplate various philosophical ideals. I wanted to follow in my father's footsteps and help guide this world into a prosperous era of peace. It was then that I decided to leave the land of the kitsunes to set out and travel the world again. But I wasn't going to be alone. It was then that I met her. She was a beautiful young vixen who had 5 tails and a sleek silver fur. She was also a rather spirited vixen, not being able to sit still in these lands anymore, and a strong desire to explore the world had overtaken her. When I left, She decided to tag along. At first, I didn't think of it that much. The company was nice and all, but she was a little too energetic even for my likings. However, as we traveled, we began to open up a bit more to each other and our feelings towards each other began to soar. During our first world trip together, we fell in love with each other as we searched for what our purpose in this world was together. Despite being rather rambunctious and lively, beneath the surface she truly was a caring fox. That is, unless you pissed her off for whatever reason. We traveled for a few centuries before returning home to contemplate what we wished to do. We had learned about the current state of the world and that hatred and greed was beginning to find its way back into the heart of humans. We knew that something would have to be done if this world was going to be saved from slipping over the edge into darkness again, and so after spending some time back here, we prepared to set out once again to ensure that the sage's work didn't go to waste. That's when everything took a turn for the worse. By this time, some humans had looked to darker ways to greedily increase their own powers. They had realized that if they truly wanted to transcend their own race, they would have to find a way to gain the powers of us demons, whether they be kitsunes like myself or some other class of demons. You've already read about this in those few Injutsu theory scrolls of yours back in Ozoshiogakuer. By the time we had returned to the land of foxes, my brother Son Goku, the EB, had already been imprisoned inside a human vessel. Over the centuries, I was forced to listen to the stories of my brethren be sealed and imprisoned. But I thanked my luck that I had managed to remain unsealed. I was also forced to listen to stories of the attempted sealing of various other classes of demons into human vessels. It was then that I realized the only class of demons that could be sealed within humans was the Bijou, the class of demons that I belonged to. The reason was chakra. We Bijou were pure constructs of chakra, and if done right, our chakra could successfully meld with human chakra. Other demons, however, had other elements mixed into their chakra that prevented their sealing into humans, but not into other objects like shrines and talismans. By the time our second journey began, most of the demons left in this world had either been sealed, or they had moved on to a different dimension to escape the greed of humanity. Still, me and Hikari remained. We held our hope that there were still some humans that would listen to reasoning and that we could guide them away from the hatred that was slowly engulfing the world. For a while, we were successful, but then it happened. I still don't know how exactly, but somehow a shinobi clan had discovered that Hikari was in fact a demon and their leader was going to attempt to seal her powers within himself. By the time I had arrived to try and rescue her, it was too late. While the bastard had failed to seal Hikari's powers within him, I could no longer sense her amongst this world. He actually came up to me and mentioned that I should be grateful to him for ridding a man of peace of a demon bitch. It was then that I snapped. It was then that I had forsaken the old man's words and gave in to the hatred that was slowly claiming this world. In my anger, I mercilessly slaughtered that entire damned clan for their atrocity. And from then on, I was on the run. Being a Bijou, it was already known that I could in fact be sealed within a human vessel, and it seemed every greedy piece of filth on this planet wanted to get their hands on me. For nearly 200 years, I was able to evade capture, but throughout that time, my own hatred towards the human race grew. However, it was never quite enough to warrant me attacking anyone unless it was out of self-defense. And then, he came, Uchiha Madara. With those accursed eyes of his, I fell into his grasp, and the next thing I remembered was being freed from his control by Senju Hashirama. But still, even then I wasn't able to breathe the free air as I was soon sealed into my first vessel, Uzumaki Mito. While I was sealed, it gave me plenty of time to reflect on just what had happened, and despite her own preaching of love and understanding, I only grew to hate more. Despite what I once believed, I could only loathe the very race that had taken everything away from me when I had simply tried to help them. After that, you already know what happened to me. And Kurama's tale. So what made you see different? I mean, when we first met, you really weren't hateful or anything. I mean, sure, you were kind of grouchy, but you really didn't seem bad, asked Naruto. At first, it was that contract. If it meant I'd be free of my prison in the end and eventually get my shot at the bastard who screwed me over, then I figured I'd put up with it. But eventually, I decided to open up to you, replied Kurama. Regardless of everything you've been subjected to, you still push forward, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. You're different than most humans. You don't seek power for yourself, you look to protect. I know that you seek to end the hatred in this world. I know no matter what you've had to endure, no matter how hopeless the situation, you won't give up and you'll find a way. In a way, you're a lot like him. Hey, you've got that right. No matter what, I won't back down, especially if that means protecting my friends from danger, replied Naruto. After all, that's my ninja way. Besides, it's good to be back in action. It really did get boring just sitting there inside those seals. At least this way, I can have some form of interaction with the outside world, replied Kurama. Hey, speaking of which, How did you manage it all those years? How did you and Hikari manage to blend in where you traveled? I mean, you said you talked to people. Wouldn't a giant fox seem kind of weird or something? Asked Naruto. Hee hee, you really think I survived all those years looking like I do now? Let me ask you this, why even as a mere academy student were you able to pull off an advanced transformation jutsu that's supposedly Jonin level? I'll admit you're not a complete failure, but even that's pushing it, replied Kurama. You know, I've never really thought about it. Until that show and tell day at the academy, I thought my transformation was normal and that I had been doing everything right. I really had no idea it was a Jonin level transformation, replied Naruto. The reason your transformation is so advanced is because of the influence of me. I may be a bijou, but I'm also a kitsune. As such, I have some traits that are associated with kitsunes. One such trait is the ability for me to take on a human form, replied Kurama. I also enjoy a good prank every now and then. But still, that's why we were able to travel amongst you humans for so long. Because we had taken on a human form. Really? You can transform into a human form? What do you look like? Asked Naruto. A blonde-haired, thick-headed, orange-wearing idiot, joked Kurama. Hey! Objected Naruto, picking up on Kurama's playful insult. Anyways, I can't transform while I'm sealed inside of you. But if you've ever wondered why you can use a high-level transformation so easily, that's why. Over the years, shinobi have developed the transformation from a simple genjutsu, but it's still not quite as advanced as the ones kitsunes can do. Hey, speaking of kitsunes, I don't suppose there are any around here? Asked Naruto. I doubt it. Most of the peaceful demons left this world ages ago, with the more hostile ones being sealed away in some sort of talisman or shrine to prevent them from wreaking havoc on this world, replied Kurama. And then there were those sealed for no real reason. Don't worry. I know she's still out there somewhere. And I know I'll find her for you somehow, replied Naruto. After all, you've done more than just help me out of desperate situations. It's the least I can do to return the favor, and beside, I can tell you really do love her. Are you really out there? For the first time in centuries, I can feel that perhaps you are not gone yet. If you're still out there somewhere, then I know this kid will be able to find you. Thought Kurama to himself. Kurama? You there? Asked Naruto, not hearing anything from his demonic tenant for a few minutes. Yeah, perhaps you should go to sleep. You're in for a long few weeks of training with me. I'm going to make certain that you're worthy of being my vessel, replied Kurama. Naruto gulped a little at the impending Kyuubi's boot camp from hell. The next day began the Kyuubi's boot camp from hell, and to Naruto's surprise, it started off as a simple talk. Okay kid, ever since that seal was released, you may have noticed something slightly different by the way you can access my power. In short, with the seal released you can access my full power, and you can also control the amount of power you can access easier. Before the seal was released, the number of tails determined the amount of power you could access. It used to be that once you reached 4 tails, you entered the version 2 cloak. Now, that is not the case. You were able to use an 8-tailed version 1 cloak when you removed the seal for that boy. The case from now on is that your power is going to be influenced by what type of cloak you enter. You've got version 1, version 2, and then full bijou mode. The version 1 allows you to use my own power to augment your own. You still have access to your own attacks, but you don't have the ability to access my abilities. Version 2 is where you set aside your own techniques but you begin to tap into mine. However, the version 2 cloak is still but a fraction of my own power. That is reserved for the full bijou mode. Yeah, I've kind of noticed a difference in the way in which I access your powers. When I was helping Neji, I was surprised I was able to hold an 8-tailed cloak in the version 1. I get that one, although I'm still not quite that familiar with the version 2. I've used it a bit, but not too much. I did notice though that I couldn't use my own techniques, replied Naruto. And then full bijou mode against Han was something completely different. The cloaks, both versions 1 and 2, are only a fraction of my power. We'll start with the version 1 cloak and go from there, instructed Kurama as Naruto took on the 8-tailed version 1 cloak. Good, now try out a few of your own techniques. Nodding, Naruto went with one of his signature techniques, the Rasengan. Charging up the sphere, Naruto noticed that the sphere took on sort of a purplish tint to it. Slamming the Rasengan into a nearby rock, he was taken aback by the large crater it left in place of the rock and surrounding trees. Whoa! Normally that would have just taken out the rock, but it was definitely more powerful than normal, commented Naruto. That's because that sphere was infused with some of my chakra. Jiraiya told you that your dad developed that jutsu after the tailed beast ball, so I believe what you have there is almost like a partial tailed beast ball. That sphere contained about 15 to 20% of my chakra, which is what served to boost its own power and give it that violet hue, explained Kurama. I'm sure you've also noticed that it increases your own speed and physical strength as well. For the remainder of the day, Kurama shifted focus from explanation to experience as he drilled how to make the full use of the version 1 cloak into Naruto's head. Naruto had noticed that all of his jutsu had gained an increase in their overall potency as was expected by both he and Kurama. Naruto also found a significant increase in his speed, agility, and even strength to some extent. Still, despite that, Kurama had proven to be a rather hard drill sergeant, instructing Naruto on how to best use the version 1 cloak's enhancements to better his own fighting style. Day 2 under Kurama's tutelage came along with training in the version 2 cloak. Now, the biggest advantage with the version 2 cloak is the unpredictability associated with it. Along with accessing more of my powers, you also gain the ability to extend the chakra outwards from you, giving you a sort of chakra arm. Until now, you've only accessed version 2 for the tailed beast ball, but there's much more you can do than just that, explained Kurama. Well, let's go ahead and enter the version 2 cloak. You've always done better by doing than me just standing here and explaining. Naruto took on the version 2 cloak as the dark red chakra completely overtook him and 9 tails appeared behind him. As Naruto progressed further into the version 2 cloak, a fox-like skeleton began to form around Naruto. Hey Kurama, what's up with these bones? I've never noticed them before, asked Naruto. It's because you've never used more than 4 tails of my power in the version 2 cloak. This is the full version 2. You can actually control whether or not they are there. They help a lot if you're fighting in close range, but they're kind of a hindrance if you're fighting from ranged. It's up to you if you want them or not, replied Kurama. Now, as I said, you can't use any of your techniques in this form, but you can access some of mine. You already know about the tailed beast ball. So let's try something different. Kurama gave Naruto a few instructions and the fox-formed Jinchuriki found that he could actually whip up a rather large twister by swiping with his claws. Unfortunately, said twister was aimed in the direction of a certain white-haired pervert who was observing the training. Hey! Will you two watch where you're aiming? I thought you said I wouldn't have to worry about being hit while you were training. Called out Jiraiya after just barely dodging the twister. I said you wouldn't have to worry about being flattened by a tail. I never said anything about a twister, laughed Kurama, causing Jiraiya to sweat drop at the realization that he was likely now the Kyuubi's personal punching bag. Well, can you please aim it away? Asked Jiraiya. But that's no fun. Pouted Kurama. Fine, seeing as what we're planning on doing next would actually kill you, haha. Handing control back to Naruto, Kurama began to explain the next ability Naruto had access to in the version 2 cloak. Fortunately for Jiraiya, this attack was aimed away and Kurama was right when he said that attack could kill as Naruto shot a highly concentrated beam of heated chakra out, carving through the rock faces of the surrounding cliffs and mountains like a hot knife through butter. Yikes, you weren't kidding that could kill, commented Naruto. Hee hee, what did you expect? I'm not the strongest of the Bija for nothing, bragged Kurama. You also have access to the Kitsune Tempest in this form, but you already know how to use it. Now, what I really want you to work on are those chakra arms, but for that we need a training partner. Jiraiya sighed as Kurama called over to him and indicated to him that Naruto needed a training partner to get a better hang on using the chakra arms. While Jiraiya wasn't about to submit himself to the torment of being Kurama's punching bag, he did agree to offer up a few shadow clones as a sacrifice. Over the next few days, Naruto began to get the hang of the chakra arms in the version 2 form thanks to the sacrifices of a few unfortunate shadow clones. After about a week there, Kurama decided that Naruto would most likely be able to catch on to the version 1 and 2 forms as he went. But it was really the full Kyuubi mode he wanted to work on, and with only a little more than 2 weeks before the Toads were ready for them and Naruto would complete the final phase of his training, he had to get Naruto's skills in utilizing the full Kyuubi mode to an acceptable level. Okay kid. This is only the second time you've used my full form and as of now, you can still only hold it for no more than 10 minutes at a time, which means that we're going to have to make the most of our time when you enter full Bija mode. That 10-minute limit will increase as your body adjusts more to the increased amount of my chakra in your system, explained Kurama. When you transform, the first thing we're going to do is get you in control of the new form. That means you won't accidentally flatten anyone with a wayward tail. Right. Let's do it then, commented Naruto as he tapped into the full power of the Kyuubi no Kitsune and could only help as his own form took on the form of Kurama. It wasn't as painful as the first time, but the massive amount of demonic chakra in his system still felt kind of weird. As the transformation completed, Naruto had been completely replaced by Kurama's form as he now stood as a gigantic 9-tailed fox instead of an orange-clad, blonde-haired human. Immediately, the tails began flapping chaotically over the place, nearly hitting Jiraiya, who had thought he was out of range of those tails. Now get them under control, ordered Kurama. How the hell do I do that? Responded Naruto. They are a part of you. You feel what they feel and they do what you tell them to do. Just focus on them and get them under your control, instructed Kurama. It's like walking. Once you learn to use them, it'll be like second nature to you. Taking Kurama's advice, Naruto focused solely on the tails, and slowly but surely, they went from wild and frantic to a more controlled and flowing. Jiraiya let out a big sigh of relief as he no longer had to play dodge the giant tail that's trying to crush me. Looking up, he still saw the tails flowing behind Naruto Kyuubi, but they were no longer out of control and it looked as if they were now under his control. Good. You just need to control them enough to keep out of the way. So long as they're not interfering with you or anyone else, you can let them do what they want right now. For the most part, just guide them, and when you need them, take full control over them. Now do that in them as a sort of shield. Right. Naruto took full control of the tails and arched them over himself as if he were using them to block a massive projectile attack. Not too bad. Now try using them as additional limbs. Rip a few trees out of the ground and use them as projectiles. It'll help with your dexterity using them. As instructed, Naruto found that it wasn't too hard to get the tails under control once he first realized how to move them, and he wrapped one of the tails around a nearby tree, ripping it from the earth and chucking over him, sending it flying to the far end of the valley. Well, that was kind of weak, commented Kurama. What do you mean? Did you see the distance I got on that? Argued Naruto. Here, let me have control for a moment. Giving in, Kurama took control of his true physical form for the first time in a century. Oh yeah, it sure feels good being able to stretch my tails for the first time in years. Making controlling his own body look easy, Kurama grabbed his own tree and flung it at the nearby cliff, embedding the large tree in the cliff. Whoa, please, that's nothing. Again, I'm not the strongest in terms of brute strength. You should see Son do this. The tree would be buried up to the roots, assuming it hadn't shattered. So what are you two up to? Asked Jiraiya, curious as to why Kurama had taken control. Just helping a kid out with a little target practice, explained Kurama as he used the chakra beam to carve a target in the side of a nearby cliff. Just as Kurama transferred control back over to Naruto, the Kyuubi form receded back into Naruto. Looks like 11 minutes right now is my limit. Just take some time to rest, perhaps work on something else. Once you're good to go again, start chucking trees at the target, but don't use too many. I don't mind you clearing out this old clearing here, but the parts that actually used to be forests I kind of liked. Right. You know, if you want to get out every now and then, I don't really mind if we're someplace that won't freak everyone out. Just don't do anything crazy, commented Naruto. So in other words, don't do anything you do, joked Kurama, causing Naruto to sweat drop. Anyways, I'd like that. Perhaps once we can hold this form for longer. And don't worry, I won't do anything stupid. You're sure about this, Jiraiya? Trust me on this, Bunta. I've had my doubts, but even I'm beginning to truly believe the Kyuubi's on our side. That seal's been removed for a few months now and he hasn't tried to break free or purposefully kill me yet, replied Jiraiya, who was situated up top the Toad Boss's head. That still doesn't mean I feel comfortable about sparring the Kyuubi itself, commented Gamabunta. For nearly the past 2 weeks, Kurama and Naruto had been working hard to bring Naruto up to a point that was acceptable to his standards, and now the giant fox thought that Naruto would benefit more from actual battle experience. "Oh, lighten up, Bunta-chan," commented Fukasaku, who had been summoned to help give Jiraiya a boost. "Even I'm interested to see where Naruto-chan and the Kyuubi have gotten." "Fine, but you're buying the sake for a long time after this," replied Bunta. In full Kyuubi mode, Naruto eyed Jiraiya atop the giant toad. Remembering his little initiation, this was going to be a good opportunity for some payback. Dashing off, Naruto made the first move as he closed the gap between him and the giant toad with ease, and Gamabunta just barely had time to jump and avoid the claw swipe. With a quick pivoting motion, Naruto whipped the tails around, intending to smack Gamabunta. By the time Naruto's tails came around, Bunta had just regained his footing, allowing him to catch the tails. However, the power behind the tails was too much for Bunta to fully dampen and the Toad Boss was sent flying backwards. "Oi! Watch those tails, you brat!" shouted Bunta. Suiton, gunshot. Bunta unleashed a number of water spheres at the Kyuubi-formed Naruto, causing his foxy opponent to either dodge or use a few low-powered tailed beast balls to intercept them. Growling, Bunta drew his Taido and lunged at Naruto. Gracefully, Naruto sidestepped the lunge, and before Bunta could follow up on his attack, Naruto had used one of his 9 tails to wrap around Bunta's hands and disarm him of his weapon. Bunta was forced to jump back to avoid the other 8 that were now attempting to wrap him up. "You know, this was a lot easier with Minato," commented Gamabunta. "And if I remember, the last time all you had to do was drop down on top of the giant furball and hold him," commented Jiraiya. "Well, shall we?" Kaden, Toad Oil Flame Bullet, shouted Jiraiya as he and Bunta unleashed their collaborative oil and flame attack upon Naruto. Countering, Naruto unleashed his own fire attack, Fox Fire, and the two fires collided in the middle, contributing to the massive inferno that lit up the ground between them. Well, it's a good thing the kid cleared that area out with target practice, thought Kurama, thankful that those attacks hadn't completely destroyed his old home. Senpo, Ultra Big Ball Rasengan, shouted Jiraiya as he was coming down on Naruto with a giant Rasengan in hand. The foxy Jinchuriki moved a few tails in the way to block Jiraiya's supercharged Rasengan. Much to Jiraiya's surprise, the tails proved to be more resilient than he had initially thought as they successfully blocked his most powerful Sage Mode attack. As Naruto was distracted with Jiraiya, this gave Bunta a chance to build up for a more powerful water attack. Suiten, Rampaging Torrent. Bunta unleashed a massive stream of powerful water upon. It was too wide of an attack for Naruto to dodge, and he was left with having to use one of his own attacks to defend with. Unleashing the Kitsune Tempest, the wind and water attacks collided, and by the time the powerful water attack reached Naruto, it had been dissipated into nothing more than a misty spray. Damn! That was my most powerful water attack and he just blew it away like nothing. This guy's certainly more powerful than the Shukaku, that's for sure, thought Bunta. Well, I think that's going to be it for now, commented Fukasaku. The Kyuubi certainly is powerful. Using his power, Naruto-chan was able to repel Bunta's and Jiraiya's most powerful attacks. As Fukasaku called the spar to an end, the Kyuubi form retreated until just Naruto was left there. So do you think he's ready? Jiraiya asked Kurama. I'll admit he's come a long way since we started. Had he have been fighting offensively instead of just defensively there, you three wouldn't have stood a chance, responded Kurama. Of course, he's still not as good as I am, but he's a lot better than he used to be. And I no longer have to yell at him with what he's gotta do. For now, I'll say I'm done with him. Good. His control over your power's going to come in handy once Akatsuki starts to move again, said Jiraiya. Well, Pa, are you ready for us? Yes, if you three are finished here, then I can summon you both to mount my Iboku, responded Fukasaku. While we're there, I'll train Naruto in the first phases of Sage training. Perhaps you could learn to enter Sage mode on yourself. It'll stop Ma's constant bickering whenever you summon us while she's preparing dinner. Hee hee, I'll think about it, replied Jiraiya. And we're ready to go. So how exactly are we going to get there? Asked Naruto. Well, Mount Myaboku is over a month away by foot, said Fukasaku. What? A month? Complained Naruto, getting a laugh out of the two sages. Don't worry. Since you've already signed the Toad contract, we'll just be reverse summon there. It will only take a few seconds, not a month, reassured Jiraiya. Well, let's get going before he starts shooting his mouth off. Nodding, Fukasaku nodded, making a hand seal, and Naruto, Jiraiya, Bunta, and Fukasaku all disappeared in a puff of smoke. Iwagakure. Aniki had just received the reports from the scouting team he had sent off to investigate the sudden halt to communications from the Namikaze hunting team. To say they weren't what he had hoped for would be an understatement. From the nature of the reports, all members of the hunting squad had been eliminated, and all the Elder Tsuchikage had from them was Han's shattered helm. Upon receiving news of the fate of the hunting team, the Iwagakure Council was already on the edge. While they hated and feared Han, they respected his power as one of Iwa's most powerful shinobi, and if the supposed Namikaze had defeated not only Han, but three of their more prominent shinobi, then he was already a much greater threat than they had originally believed. But how could he beat Han? He was one of the few true Jinchuriki, and there's no way he could have beaten the power of a Bijou, stated one of the council members. If that's the case, then the Namikaze is already a much larger threat than we originally believed. But to beat a Jinchuriki, for someone no older than 15, I can't imagine how he could manage to pull something like that off, said another council member before he was interrupted. Unless of course he was also a Jinchuriki, spoke a bearded, red-haired man with an odd-shaped hat. The entire council froze in horror at the possibility offered by Iwa's second Jinchuriki, Roshi of the La Verilice. But Konoha doesn't have a Jinchuriki, stated one of the council members. No Kichi, that doesn't appear to be the case, replied Aniki. How old is the Namikaze brat? Initial reports estimate him to be between 15 and 16 years of age, commented one of the Anbu present at the meeting. And we all know that just over 15 years ago, Konoha was attacked by the Kyuubi no Kitsune, explained Aniki. But the Ondaime Hokage killed the beast by dragging it to the grave with him, argued one of the council members. You can't kill a Bijou, stated Roshi. If he had killed the Kyuubi, it would have reformed by now. But it hasn't, which means then he's the JJ Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, said Roshi. If our knowledge of Kumo's Kinkaku and Ginkaku is correct, Then those whisker marks on his face indicate that he's been exposed to the Kyuubi's chakra. The entire council chamber paled at this revelation. If the Namikaze brat really was a Jinchuriki, then the threat of him had just increased immensely. I also believe that if he was able to defeat Han and our agents, then that suggests he does have a high degree of control over the Kyuubi's power, said Roshi. Aniki slammed his fists into the table, standing up out of frustration. Bad decision. Crack. Gah. My back, cried Aniki. Father, said Kichi, coming to his elderly father's aid. I'm fine, ouch, shouted Aniki as Kichi snapped his dad's back into place. Hagatsu, is there anything else in your report on the brat I should know? The Anbu who had been assigned to gathering intel on Namikaze Naruto stood up. Just one, sir. His family name does not seem to be Namikaze. It appears as if he was given another name. Well, if he's not a Namikaze, then what is he? Asked Aniki. His name is Uzumaki Naruto, said Hagatsu as a dead silence crept over the room. No, it can't be, he's a Namikaze, he can't be an Uzumaki. That accursed clan is supposed to be dead, shouted one of the council members. Please, Tsushikage-sama. Please tell me that's not true. I'm sorry, Tachi-san, but our reports from the Chunin exams hosted in Kumagakure 2 years ago show him using Uzumaki-style Fuinjutsu. By this time, Aniki had clutched his hand to the point where his own nails were drawing blood as he stared at the picture of one Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto in front of him. No, he's definitely a Namikaze. He has the same hair and those same cold eyes. Those same soulless eyes that ruthlessly murdered over half our army in the last war. I'm certain he's a Namikaze, but, no, it can't be. Shit. Tsuchikage-sama? Asked one concerned council members. He's not an Uzumaki, he's not a Namikaze, he's both. If one had walked into that room at that moment, they would have no problem feeling the cold, icy grip of the Shinigami's life-taking grasp. In the blink of an eye, the world surrounding Uzumaki Naruto disappeared. One moment, he was standing in the middle of a forested clearing in the land of foxes. The next, he was in what appeared to be a lush and humid jungle with giant plants and mushrooms. Lounging on some of the leaves, were a few lazy toads, bathing in the warm sun that shone down upon them. Whoa, gasped Naruto as he took in the new surroundings. Where are we? Welcome, Naruto, to Mount Myaboku, the land of the toads, announced Jiraiya. This place is Mount Myaboku? This place is incredible, exclaimed Naruto. Now come on, Naruto-chan. Jiraiya-chan. Ma's prepared a special lunch for you too, said Fukasaku as he ushered Naruto and Jiraiya towards his home. As Shima placed the food in front of Naruto, the blonde's stomach suddenly felt queasy as he looked down at the grasshopper soup, crickets on a stick, and the worm noodles. After a most delectable lunch, Naruto and Pa found themselves outside near a fountain with a waterfall of oil pouring into it, and Naruto hunched over as his own stomach assaulted him. Surrounding them, were numerous giant toad statues. Now Naruto-chan, I'm going to explain the difference between ninja and sage techniques, spoke Pa. This managed to take Naruto's attention away from his own stomach. While ninja techniques use the energy within you, sage techniques use the energy surrounding you. Huh? Surrounding you? Asked Naruto. As you already know, ninja techniques use chakra born of spiritual energy and physical energy. However, sage techniques also add natural energy from outside of you and blend it with your own chakra to form a new, stronger chakra. With this, the strength of your own powers will drastically increase, explained Pa. Those techniques that use your own chakra within you as well as the spiritual energy surrounding you, are called sage techniques. Okay, so what exactly is natural energy? Asked Naruto. It's the energy and chakra located in the earth and atmosphere surrounding you, said Pa. In other words, you draw in the chakra from the atmosphere and the earth surrounding you and use it as your own. Watch this. Fukasaku walked over to one of the larger statues and just stood there for a few moments, gathering natural energy before grabbing the bottom of the statue and almost effortlessly lifting it above his head. Why, you picked it up? Exclaimed a surprised Naruto. How? This is the power of sage techniques and natural energy, commented Fukasaku. But, what exactly did you do? Asked Naruto. That's right, you can't quite feel natural energy, so it's impossible for you to use it, yet, said Fukasaku. The how? Asked Naruto. You must become one with nature, stated Fukasaku. And how do I become one with nature? You must die, said Fukasaku ominously. What? Shouted Naruto, earning a chuckle from Fukasaku and Jiraiya, who had taken a seat atop one of the statues. Okay, maybe it won't be that extreme, although that is the easiest way to become one with nature, commented Fukasaku. First thing we've got to do is get you accustomed to gathering natural energy. Now, hold out your arm. Fukasaku motioned for Naruto to come over towards the fountain, and as the blonde held out his arm, the elder toad took some oil from the fountain and rubbed it on Naruto's arm. This oil will help attract natural energy. Even though he couldn't quite see it yet, Naruto immediately began taking in natural energy and a chuckle was immediately heard from Jiraiya. "What's wrong, Uro-senin?" asked Naruto as he noticed an obvious croak in his own voice. "Ga? What's wrong with my voice?" In a panic, Naruto rushed over to the fountain to get a look at his reflection, only to see that he had practically half transformed into a frog. "What's happening?" Croak, thwack. Naruto felt a blunt pole smack him in the back of the head and he realized that he had turned back to normal. What the hell was that? That is the dangerous part about Senjutsu training. If you don't take in and meld the chakra with your own correctly, you turn into a petrified frog, explained Fukasaku, pointing to the statues surrounding them. Earning a gulp from Naruto. "Don't worry, Naruto-chan. This staff of mine can force all the natural energy out of you if you start to transform. Now, let's get started on this, shall we?" asked Fukasaku. Some time passed and now Naruto was in a meditative position beneath the waterfall of Dodoil. A slight smile lit up Fukasaku's face as orange pigments appeared around Naruto's eyes. "Whoa, I can feel the strength welling up inside me," commented Naruto as he leapt from the pond to the top of a nearby statue, his body nearly bursting with energy. While ninja techniques exhaust you the more you use them, you're not using your own chakra. Instead, you're using nature's energy, so rather than becoming more exhausted, you actually recover quicker, explained Fukasaku. "Anyways, now that you've learned how to take in natural energy, the next step is to do it without the oil. We'll take care of that tomorrow. Now, I believe Ma's making lunch." Fukasaku chuckled when Naruto suddenly became nauseous. "Don't worry, she's making something more enjoyable for you humans. I don't know where she got it, but she found a recipe for a dish called ramen." "Ramen?" exclaimed Naruto. The mention of God's food immediately perked Naruto's attention as the naturally energized blonde darted towards lunch. "That Naruto, even after 2 years, he still hasn't changed when it comes to ramen," commented Jiraiya, hopping down from the top of one of the statues. "Yes, but he is something," commented Fukasaku. "If you've noticed, he doesn't have any toad-like features besides the eye. I believe that's something you still can't get right." "Yeah, but the oil was easy. We'll see once he learns to knead sage chakra on his own, without the oil," retorted Jiraiya. "Damn Gaki. Even I wasn't able to perfectly take in natural energy with the oil." Seeing the jealous look on Jiraiya's face, Fukasaku let out a slight chuckle. "You know, you're going to be here for a few months regardless of how well he does. You might as well complete your own sage training." Thwack. Sitting atop one of the frog statues, trying to gather natural energy without the aid of the oil by remaining entirely still, Naruto had begun to transform yet again. As Naruto's face began to widen and become more frog-like, the back of his head had a destined date with Fukasaku's staff, knocking the natural energy out of the blonde and reversing the transformation. "Concentrate. You're moving. You must not move," emphasized Fukasaku. "Damn, I didn't think it would be this hard without oil," complained Naruto. "Of course it's hard. Did you think it would be easy?" asked Fukasaku. "Look, you need to concentrate harder. You're not taking this seriously." Fukasaku suddenly got an idea to help Naruto to concentrate. "Come with me." A few minutes later, Naruto was now staring straight up into the sky as multiple jagged spires rose up in front of him. What's this?" "This looks about the right size," said Fukasaku as he hopped over towards a stack of stone plates. "Follow me." Making it look easy, Fukasaku grabbed one of the heavy plates and hopped up one of the spires, setting it atop the needle-like point and balancing on it perfectly. As soon as Naruto perched himself upon his own plate, it immediately began to shake and the blonde Jinchuriki plummeted towards the ground. Before he could react to save himself, Fukasaku had lashed out with his own tongue to catch him before he could become one with nature permanently. "Only once you've stopped moving will you be able to absorb natural energy," exclaimed Fukasaku as he set Naruto down to grab another tablet and continue the training. Orochimaru's lair. "Kukaku, so Kabuto, do you have anything notable to mention?" "Orochimaru-sama, I have produced 3 specimens all successfully displaying dual bloodlines," commented Kabuto. "I wish to keep them under surveillance for a few more months to ensure their stability and how well they adapt to the dual bloodlines. Assuming everything goes well, they will be ready by the time you are prepared to transfer." "Very well. May I see which specimens you have created, Kabuto?" asked Orochimaru, being handed a few scrolls from Orochimaru. The snake Sanin examined the scrolls, licking his lips with a satisfied look on his face. Well Kabuto, you've certainly come up with some interesting combinations, this one in particular great." "Orochimaru. If I may ask, do you have any plans for her? She has after all, served her purpose seeing as she can no longer access the vaults in Ozashiogakuer." "Yes, as a matter of fact, There is another sensory-type ninja that I have in mind to sacrifice along with her in the prospect of combining their bloodlines into an ultimate sensory ninja," commented Kabuto. "Besides, she's currently residing in our southern base and I look forward to seeing what exactly Amachi has concocted for us." Back at Mount Mayaboku, "He's doing it," thought Fukasaku as Naruto had finally managed to remain still and stabilize himself, thus becoming one with nature and the elder Toad Sage watching on as the natural energy swirled into Naruto's own chakra, and melding with it. That's it. He's finally done it. As the natural energy melded with Naruto's chakra, an orange pigment appeared around Naruto's eyes, indicating the ascension to sagehood. That coloring is the sign of a sage. And the fact that he's not gained any frog-like features, does that mean he's surpassed Jiraiya-chan? The elder Toad shot a glance towards Jiraiya, who was observing them from the ground. "You've got to be kidding me. No warts? No webbed hands?" No, he couldn't have. "It hasn't even been a month since we got here," thought Jiraiya, not willing to buy the fact that Naruto might have just surpassed him when it came to sage mode. As Naruto opened his eyes to reveal the yellow eyes with horizontal slits that was the mark of the Toad Sage mode, a small bird began flying around Naruto's head. "So Naruto-chan, how does it feel?" asked Fukasaku. Like I'm one with nature, I guess," replied Naruto. At that point, the bird that was flying around Naruto landed on the blonde's shoulder, thus disrupting the delicate balance he had achieved atop the spire and sending the blonde plummeting to the ground below. Sidestepping out of the way, Jiraiya just watched as his student impacted the ground, resulting in a crater with a much intact and functioning blonde. "Ow. Hey, huh?" said a confused Naruto as he rubbed his shoulder. "That really didn't hurt too much." "That's sage mode. Your body has been activated in many ways. Now that you've reached sage mode, there's one last thing I want to teach you before your training trip comes to a close, and that's the frog kata, the way sages spar using sage chakra," explained Fukasaku. "Damn it, Gaki. How did you do that?" shouted a frustrated Jiraiya. "Do what?" asked a confused Naruto. "Where are the warts? The webbing? The frog-like featured?" shouted Jiraiya. "Wait, am I supposed to be more frog-like?" asked Naruto. "Don't worry about him, Naruto-chan. Jiraiya-chan's just jealous that he hasn't perfected sage mode yet." "You know, Jiraiya-chan, there's still time while I teach Naruto the frog kata," said Fukasaku, pointing over towards the pile of rocks. As Naruto and Fukasaku walked off towards a more suitable training area, Jiraiya was left thinking, "Damn Gaki. I can't believe he's actually obtained a perfect sage transformation, and in this short amount of time. But you know, I can't help but be proud of him. He's come a long way in these past few years." Which then raises the question, what the hell happened? What happened with Naruto before I found him at the hot springs? He should have been like his father, a prodigy. But he was neglected. I'm going to have a long talk with Tsunade Haim to see what she's uncovered. If he had been given even the slightest attention, then who knows where he would be right now. Sighing, Jiraiya walked over towards the pile of stone plates and grabbed one of them. "Pause. Right. It is about time I finish my own sage training. Besides, Naruto may be strong, but he's still going to need all the help he can get, and there's no way I'm going to let him face it all alone." "Damn chief, this stuff is strong," commented Naruto. He didn't know how, but he had somehow found himself in the middle of a poker night with Gamabunta, Gamakichi, and a few of the other toads. To celebrate Naruto's successful completion of sage training, Bunta had decided to break out the good stuff, Mount Mayaboku fire sake. Yes, that was the good stuff, probably the strongest sake in the world. Bunta, who really didn't have that much considering he is a building-sized toad, was already on the tipsy side. Kurama was having a good old time trying to break down the alcohol, and despite the help, even Naruto was feeling the effects of it. However, he wasn't too far gone that he couldn't think clearly. If the blonde remembered correctly, he was going to be in some big trouble upon arriving home. Flashback. It was the night before Naruto was due to leave with Jiraiya before starting his 2-year-long training trip with the Toad Sage. But still, Naruto couldn't help but get one more prank set up. After all, there was no way he was going to let them forget about him, Konoha's #1 prankster, while he was away. Currently, Naruto was atop the Hokage monument placing an array of ceiling tags over the faces of the former Hokages. There we go. Now every morning the village will wake up to something different, thought Naruto as he put the finishing touches on the ceiling matrix that now encompassed the Hokage monument. Yes, he had rigged those seals to paint the Hokage monument in some random fashion every morning at sunrise. With the exception of the first day, those seals were meant to go off when he was a far enough distance from Konoha that he would be able to safely escape if Tsunade had gone berserk for his little prank. Overlooking Konoha from a safe distance, Naruto observed as his pranking seals exploded, covering the Hokage monument in a cloud of paint. Even Jiraiya saw this and was staring at the monument curiously, wondering what exactly his blonde student had done. And when the paint cleared, he couldn't help but laugh and feel proud of his student. On the cliff face just beneath the four heads was an open copy of Jiraiya's Icha book with 3 of the Hokages looking down at it and a variety of perverted expressions on their face. The Shodaime had a slight blush on his face and was giggling like Kakashi would, if anyone could figure out what exactly was underneath that mask of his. That reminds me. Team's spending a few years with Kakashi-sensei. Surely he's gotta know what's under that mask. The Nidaime had wide eyes that were staring down at the book along with a slight trickle of blood coming out of his nose. The old man's was similar to when Naruto had hit him with his sexy jutsu on the night of the Mizuki incident, with a massive blush on his face and 2 strong gushers of blood. Lastly was his dad, the Ondaime. Unlike the others, Minato wasn't looking at the book. Rather, he was examining his predecessors and had a look that said, "Am I seriously associated with these perverts?" However, to those who looked close enough, they could see slight hint of fear in his eyes that told the entire truth of the matter. "Don't look down, don't look down. If you do, Kushina will castrate you. Whatever you do, don't look down." As Jiraiya and Naruto admired the blonde prankster's work, a yell was heard from the direction of Konoha that sent chills down the spines of both master and apprentice. "Naruto, oh crap. Run Naruto. We can't let Tsunade catch us," shouted Jiraiya as the 2 turned tail and ran as fast as they could before Tsunade personally welcomed them back to Konoha, 2 years early and wrapped in a full-body cast. Still, much to Jiraiya's delight, Naruto's little prank had turned out to be a good form of advertisement, and the perverted writer found that his sales had increased significantly during the following months. End flashback. "Yeah, I need to do something or Baku's going to kill me," thought Naruto. And if everything worked right there, I figure it would have taken them a few weeks to remove those seals without either me or Uro-Sennin in the village. Yeah, I'm going to need something to apologize to Bakun with. And this sake might actually do the trick if I can get a few bottles out of Chief. "Hey Chief, how about a little wager? Next hand, neither of us look at it, and if I win, how about you give me a bottle of this sake?" offered Naruto. "Why, ha ha ha. That's a good one, kid. Like I'd ever wager a bottle of my special stash," laughed the giant toad. However, it was clear that Bunta was near drunk. "Okay fine, you've got a wager. But when I win, you've got to get that girl of yours to bake me a toad-sized serving of those sweets." "Hinata-chan's sweets? Oh wow, there really are going to be some high stakes on this hand," thought Naruto. Apparently, Bunta had gotten a taste of Hinata's baking whenever Gamakachi returned home from that one time where he had met Hinata when Hinata was signing her own summoning contract. And yes, Naruto knew just how delicious those sweets of Hinata's were. They were like gold. Edible, sweet, and delectable gold. "Fine, let's go. T-bio, alright, bring it you brat. Let's see what you've got," exclaimed Game Bunta, flipping over his cards to reveal that he had somehow managed to pull off a straight from the very beginning. Still, Naruto's luck held for him and he flipped over 5 giant that he had to have shadow clones hold for him, to reveal a flush. "Looks like I win, Chief," grinned Naruto. "Ha, you think you're so good, you brat? Double or nothing on this hand or you ain't getting squat," grumbled the drunken toad. By this point in time, most of the other toads were either too drunk to realize what exactly was going on or they had already passed out. 3 hands of the same deal later, Game Bunta had also passed out as Naruto stumbled his way back to where he was staying, thankful that Kurama had agreed to sober him up tonight. He was now carrying a scroll that had 8 bottles worth of the famed Mount Myaboku fire sake in it. Thankfully, 8 bottles were nothing for Bunta, and the Toad boss would most likely not even realize that much sake was gone, and this gave him plenty of get-out-of-jail-free cards with Tsunade and even a bottle or 2 for himself. "Damn Kit, I know you're not the biggest sake connoisseur out there, but you have to admit that was some pretty good stuff," commented Kurama as Naruto lied down on his mat in the guest house for him and Jiraiya. "Just make sure to save some of those for yourself. I doubt you're getting any more from that overgrown toad. I'm certain it'll only take 1 bottle of that stuff to get you out of the trouble you're going to be in when you get home. Keep an extra bottle or 2 set aside just in case you get in trouble with the old bat again. Bring one to a party with all your friends, hey, they won't know what hit 'em. And save the remaining few bottles for us, I mean yourself." Yeah, shrugged Naruto. "Anyways, that's not what I wanted to talk to you about. It's regarding this sage training you're undergoing," said Kurama. "Huh? What about it?" "I've been thinking. This sage chakra you get when you're in sage mode is pretty powerful stuff, and the fact that you now can draw it in from the atmosphere and earth itself means there is virtually an unlimited supply of it. The only limitations to it are how much you can hold at one time and how fast you can absorb it. If I'm correct, Then I believe you can get a bit more time out of jutsus like your regression seal, explained Kurama. Honestly, I've been wondering that as well. How much time do you think? We were just barely able to get 12 years before, said Naruto. Remember, it's not always the same amount of time with every seal. Some seals can be regressed further while others can't be regressed as far. However, just using the caged bird seal as a comparison, I would think that between the sage chakra and the increased amount of my chakra you can access as a result of our trainings, I would think that you can get at least another 2 years out of it. That much? Wow. Considering the amount of chakra those later years took, that's a lot, commented Naruto. But you know, there's still gotta be a way to get the caged bird seal off without using the regression seal. I know I promised to get Neji's seal off and I did, but I can't help but think that there's gotta be some way to remove the seal from others. I mean, I can't go around and regressing the caged bird seal off of every Hyuga. Some have been on too long and the Hyuga clan has at least 100 members. That would just be crazy. Sadly, I agree. Well, get some rest. It sounds like your training comes to an end tomorrow, and once you get back to Konoha, then the real fun begins, laughed Kurama. I can't wait to see the looks on everyone's faces when they see you go full bijou mode the first time. Yeah, but you know I can only do that when it's only my friends that I trust or as a last resort. I don't want the entire village thinking I've been possessed and they go back to trying to kill me. I've already gotten respect from some and the rest of the village doesn't seem to care that much anymore. It's only a matter of time now before they really see who I am, and no offense, but I don't want them to see me as you, replied Naruto. As the lowered in the sky, Jiraiya sat atop one of the large spires with a slab underneath him. In all honesty, he had not intended to train some more in the sage arts, but with the revelation that Naruto could actually achieve a perfect sage mode, Jiraiya was soon coaxed into completing his own sage training. After 3 weeks of training, Jiraiya found that the only thing that remained were the large red pigments that covered the side of his face. The warts, webbing, and toad-like features were gone. Jiraiya had finally managed to perfect his own sage mode after so many years of procrastinating. Jumping down from the spire, the earth buckled underneath Jiraiya as he landed. I see you've finally done it, Jiraiya-chan, commented Fukasaku. I can definitely feel the difference between the imperfect and perfect sage modes, commented Jiraiya, feeling the pure sage chakra in his system. Now perhaps you won't have to drag Ma away whenever she's cooking dinner, replied Fukasaku, earning a chuckle from Jiraiya. I'll be honest, I hadn't planned on completing the sage training, but the Gaki forced my hand, commented Jiraiya. He really is something, said Fukasaku. It took him less than a month to achieve what took you years of training to do. Hey, he's full of surprises. It took Minato 3 years to develop his Rasengan, it took me 3 months to master it, and it only took Naruto 3 weeks. And not only has he mastered that jutsu, but he's also completed it, said Jiraiya. Yes, and he seems to have exceptional control over the Kyuubi's chakra, added Fukasaku. He's already Jonin level, A rank I would say. Add in sage mode and that might push him to low S rank. Now, throw the Kyuubi's power into the mix and even I don't know if I'd be able to beat him. I've done everything I can to help him out to this point. There's not much more I can do that will actually benefit. The best thing now is for us to return home and let Naruto experience his new powers and truly find out where he stands and what works best for him, analyzed Jiraiya. Now this group that's after him, or rather the Kyuubi, Akatsuki, they've got no idea what's about to hit them, grinned Jiraiya. And it's not just Naruto. That boy's got a unique ability. He inspires those around him to do their best and strive to become better. Naruto's not the only one who's been hard at work. From what I've been reading from Tsunade's communications, all of his friends have been working their asses off to get better. Even his own teammates are behind him all the way. Sakura is blossoming as an excellent medic under Tsunade Haim, and while I haven't heard much regarding Kakashi and Sasuke, Kakashi is the ideal teacher for Sasuke, and if I know how Naruto and Sasuke operate, there's no way Sasuke is going to sit by as Naruto passes him up. Sasuke, wasn't he the one you were afraid would turn out like your former teammate? Asked Fukasaku. Yeah, but as I said, Naruto's got a special power. If it wasn't for Naruto, then I feel Sasuke would have left in some obscured search for power, tossing the village aside like Orochimaru did. However, Naruto managed to get him to open up and to accept those who are actually trying to help him. Perhaps this generation can do it. Perhaps they will be able to do what mine could not. Well, Naruto, I'm glad to say that I've taught you everything I could and more, said Jiraiya as he stood opposite his student in a clearing at Mount Myoboku, Ma, Pa, and all the other toads that Naruto had befriended over the years surrounding them. As of now, your training with me is complete. Then dropping the teacher facade and putting on the godfatherly one, Jiraiya continued. I really am proud of how far you've come, and I'm sure they would be too if they could be here. Jiraiya, thank you, said Naruto. actually calling Jiraiya by his real name for one of the first times as a joyful tear came to his eyes. "Don't worry about it," Naruto said Jiraiya as he pulled out a box from his pack. "I know it's not that much, but I had this made as a present for you before we left Ogasarawa." As Naruto took the present and opened it, his face lit up in glee as he pulled a long red coat out of the box. Looking closer, the coat had a black flame pattern along the base. And while it wasn't extravagant, on the back of the coat was a black outline of the Uzumaki spiral. "Whoa! This is awesome!" exclaimed Naruto as he put the coat on. "Hey, glad you like it," said Jiraiya. "You know, perhaps it's the coat, but you honestly are starting to look more like him." Jiraiya was right. Over the past years, Naruto had grown, not just in skill and strength, but in physical appearance as well. Naruto was beginning to look more like his father. His hair had grown longer and spikier. While they weren't as long as his father's yet, his bang now hung over his headband so that some of the longer spikes reached the base of his headband. Even his eyes were starting to resemble his father's. Foregoing having his sword sealed away in his gloves, Arashi was now strapped to his left side by a belt that he had picked up with his clothes. Something about having a sword at his side just felt right. Hanging around the blonde's neck was a gem-sized, miniature scroll. That scroll was something that he kept close to him as it contained everything about his remaining family. Yes, that scroll was the Uzumaki family tree that he had picked up in Uzashiogakuer. He had realized that scroll had a special jutsu on it that allowed it to shrink to about the size of the crystal Tsunade wore around her neck. At the Land of Iron, he had been able to add 6 more names to that scroll, forming a separate branch from the branch in the clan that he descended from. These 6 names were Uzumaki Kairi, her and Mifune's children Hiroto and Keiko, Hiroto's son Hiro, Keiko's son Kenichi, and Keiko's daughter Kyoko. While they weren't directly related to the branch that Naruto had descended from, they were still family, and that was one goal he had set his mind to ever since stumbling upon the Uzumakis of the Land of Iron. To locate all the remaining Uzumakis. To find his family. Thinking on that, there was one thing that slightly disturbed him. He had met another Uzumaki before. It was only brief, but he recalled that girl from Uzu that was with the sound when he and Jiraiya were there. There were only 2 ways that she would be there. Either she was allied with Orochimaru, or she was his prisoner and forced to go with the sound. However, that didn't change anything. She was with Orochimaru, and there was no way in hell Naruto was going to let any member of his family suffer in Orochimaru's clutches. He would save his family. Seeing as Naruto's mind was on his family, Uro-Sennin, "There's one last place I want to stop before going home." Looking down upon a valley near the northeastern coast of the Land of Fire, it was there. Just as Mifune had described it, Naruto gazed down upon the marvel that had left a lasting mark on the landscape, as evidence of what had once occurred. Looking down from the cliff, etched into the very ground itself, was a giant Uzumaki spiral. The same spiral that the warriors of the Uzumaki clan had created when they unleashed their final jutsu upon the invading hordes during the beginning of the Second Shinobi War. It truly was as magnificent as Mifune had described it. The lines of the spiral were actually the size of canyons, and while much of that land had been reclaimed by nature, the rifts in the earth still stood out to any onlooker who gazed upon the grave marker of the legendary warriors of Uzashiogakuer. Somehow, Naruto felt himself drawn towards the middle of the spiral, and after navigating his way to the center, located on the very spot where his great-great-grandfather last stood, was an engraved stone shrine. Walking over to it and wiping away the dust and overgrowth, Naruto was able to make out what the engravings said. "Here marks the site where the world witnessed the valiant efforts of the noble warriors of Uzashiogakuer. Here marks the site where brothers stood side by side, defending the values that they strive to live up to their entire lives. May this everlasting mark serve as a reminder that no matter how hard one may try, no matter how desperate their efforts, the whirlpool will never be silenced. It lives on, within myself and within the children of the spiral. You are? I wonder who that could be?" thought Naruto. The way it was written most likely meant that the U was for Uzumaki, but as Naruto looked at the tree, there was no living Uzumakis that had a name beginning with the letter R. If that was the case, then he would find this R Uzumaki, and just as the inscription said, the whirlpool would return. Konoha. It was early afternoon, and Team 8 had just finished up with a rather stressful mission that proved to be frustrating at the very best. They had been assigned to track down a Rouge ninja who had been harassing a nearby town and capture him. While the ninja really wasn't too much of a match for them and the tracking proved to be rather easy, the law enforcement of the client town was what nearly made their heads explode. For hours, the 2 officials debated over whether or not that was the right guy due to a birthmark that one argued was a few millimeters too high. It was a completely pointless argument, and even Hinata of all people had grown slightly irritated. Arriving back at her home, Hyuga Hinata wanted nothing more to do than lay down and take a nap. Her eyes drifted from the ceiling over to her bedside table, where she had a framed picture of her and Naruto on the night where they had first become a couple and had their first kiss, the same night where Jiraiya had caught them off guard with the camera. It's been over 2 years now. Naruto-kun should be coming home just about any time now, thought Hinata. I wonder what he's like. I wonder how much he's changed. I wonder if he still likes me. I hope he likes how I look. The years honestly could not have been much kinder to the young Hyuga as she developed from a girl into a young woman. She had grown over the years, in more than just one way. In general aspects, Hinata had gained quite a few inches, about 162 centimeters, a good height for a young woman her age. Her body had also begun to take on a more womanly figure. While she no longer wore the baggy beige jacket from a few years ago, she found it hard to part with wearing a jacket and had replaced her bulky old jacket with a lavender and white hooded jacket. Unlike her old jacket, this one did manage to show off some of her newly developed curves, if even just a little. As the years went on, the young Hyuga began to take on a look that more closely resembled her mother. A soft and delicate beauty Hinata had become, letting her midnight blue hair grow down to her mid-back, just below the shoulder blades. To anyone first gazing upon her, Hinata was probably the last person you'd suspect as being a shinobi, but that was a mistake made by many opponents. The shy and timid girl who had no self-confidence was long gone, that shell peeled away years ago by a certain blonde. While she still remained a rather quiet, serene, and gentle soul, her skills over the years had allowed her to blossom into a skilled kunoichi with a level of grace that hadn't been seen since her mother's time. Turning her attention forward, she eyed the hat of the Uzukage that Naruto had left in her possession, to care for it and hold on to it as a promise that he'd return to her when he was done with his training. Naruto-kun must be training hard. I hoped he comes back soon. Finally, Hinata rolled her head to the side so that she was looking out of the window and peering down into the central courtyard. She watched as her father approached a cloaked figure waiting at the entrance. From the looks of things, it was another suitor, coming to ask for an opportunity to court her, and her father going to reject his attempt. Why did those elders have to start spreading those rumors? I'm not interested in a suitor. I only want Naruto-kun. Seeing as Hinata was nearing official marrying age, and the clan elders could no longer have her sealed despite the fact that she was no longer the heir to her family and the clan, they figured they'd use her for something else. As it was now, they were trying to marry her away to some nobleman, which would increase the overall power, wealth, and influence of the clan. However, they did not have the authority or power to marry away Hinata. One law of the village created back during the Shodai's time was to allow for freedom of marriage. This effectively meant that people were allowed to marry who they wanted, and while arranged marriages were still used in the village, both parties had agreed to them and neither side was forced into a betrothal. Still, that did not stop the elders from saying that Hinata was seeking suitors to wed, creating a good deal of frustration for the Hyuga beauty and her father. As it stood, Hiyashi had dealt with over 24 suitors in the 2 months since the elders began with their latest scheme. All of them had been turned away, some peacefully, and some getting thrown out on their sorry juke ass. Looking down upon the courtyard, Hinata activated her Byakugan, looking to see who was beneath the cloak. However, the first thing that caught her eye was the color of the chakra, blue, but with a slight tint of red. Please let it be, she begged, hoping her own eyes weren't lying as she raced out of her room and towards the courtyard. State why you have come, spoke Hiyashi as he approached the cloaked individual. He was already not in a happy mood as this was the second suitor of the day and said suitor had interrupted a very productive training session with Neji. From what Hiyashi could tell, the stranger stood at a height of 173 centimeters and the tone of his voice placed him around the age of mid-teens. Yep, most likely the son of some nobleman come to seek Hinata's hand. I have come to see Hinata-chan, replied the stranger. I am sorry, but my daughter is not seeking a suitor. Her heart already belongs to someone and there is only one man who I will allow my daughter to see, spoke Hiyashi as he activated his own Byakugan. I ask that you please leave or I will be forced to make you. I don't know about these suitors, but I assure you that Hinata-chan's heart is mine as hers, replied the cloaked man as he reached up to remove the hood that was shielding his face from view. Hiyashi prepared to learn the identity of his next victim, but could only help but gasp as a ghost of his past stood before him. Minato? Why did uncle just call him Minato? The only Minato I know of is the Yondaime Hokage, and that most certainly is. No, gasped Neji. It can't be. Is he? It was at that point that Neji realized just how right he had been in the first match of his first Chunin exams, when he stated to a certain blonde that those who become Hokage were born into that destiny. Naruto? called out a sweet voice. Naruto's attention turned from the now gaping Hiyashi to the pale beauty standing before him, and now there were two people in the Hyuga courtyard struggling to retain their composure, along with one fox making catcalls and whistles inside his vessel's mind. Hinata-chan? Stuttered Naruto. Sure, Hinata had been cute and beautiful before, but now? That's Hinata-chan? That angel can't be Hinata-chan. Since when did she get so hot? As Naruto was examining the hot beauty before him, his eyes were instinctively drawn towards a certain area of the female anatomy. Oh yeah, those are at least D's. No, stop it. No perverted thoughts. Naruto mentally beat himself until he heard the sweet voice of his angel once again. Naruto-kun? Called out Hinata, breaking Naruto for his stupor. Hinata-chan, said Naruto as he slowly began walking towards her, and she did the same, taking a few steps forward before they met in the middle. Embracing each other, their lips met as the couple shared their first kiss with each other for the first time in years. Uzumaki Naruto was finally home. That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.